Welcome back to another amazing episode. And as you know, I always love to start with some coaching announcements. Now, this is super exciting and it's also very time sensitive. I have my cycling skills 4-week workshop for women who are new to cycling. That's starting on Thursday night, July 8th. It's super close. Now, listen up, ladies. If this is for you and it resonates where you are new to cycling or you're not new to cycling and you've been cycling for many years and you're looking for ways to get better, like whether it's climbing, whether it's having better endurance, whether it's being improving your pedal stroke, this workshop is for you. Hands down. It's amazing because I'm putting it on. No, I'm just kidding. But as a cycling coach, these are skills that I've been coaching and teaching my club for over 13 years. And there are those skills that people are always asking about. Now, here's how it works. So it's 4 weeks. Each week you get one workshop. The first week is dedicated to pedal stroke skills. And what happens, it's all online. And I do a description, then I do a demonstration, and then you get on your bike and you go through some drills. Then I give you homework, and then we come back for a second meeting during the week for a Q&A, and this is where you get to basically pick my brain for a month. The second week is all about hills. The third week is about strength, power, and speed. And the fourth week, we tie it all together with nutrition. And I'm just so excited to be offering this to women who are new to cycling. And it starts tomorrow night. So basically the deadline is noon on Thursday. So hopefully you're catching this like right now. Go to the website, cyclingskillspro.com. Check it out. And I hope to meet you and help you improve your cycling over the 4 months. Take care and we'll see you later. Bye. Don't forget to subscribe and rate and review and enjoy this next episode with Natasha Wilch. She's talking all about concussion recovery. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for coming back for another episode of Secrets in the Saddle, All Things Cycling podcast with your host, Sylvie. And we have an extraordinary lady here today. She's not a cyclist, but she's a specialist in concussion therapy. And if you've noticed from some of our past interviews, some of them have stopped their cycling career because of concussions. And as everybody probably knows, you might know someone who has suffered from a concussion. I can certainly say I have a handful of friends plus my daughter who suffers from a concussion. So that's why this interview is so important for everybody to listen. Make sure you share, make sure you put your notifications on, and let's welcome this amazing woman, Natasha Wilch from Victoria, BC. And she has put together, she's going to tell us her story, but she's put together some really cool services for concussion. Would you say victims?
Survivors, sufferers.
Survivors. Like somebody really, like they're not victims.
They're not victims.
That's right. They aren't. So survivors. I'm sorry. Well, that name. So welcome, Natasha. And before I bring her out, I'm just going to say that I was lucky enough to meet this amazing woman. We both joined this mastermind this past spring. It's been about a month and so we've been in there, and we've been lucky enough to connect with that within the group. And that's why I was like, what? This is what you do. I need to have you on the podcast because so many cyclists have, accidents, and concussions result from those accidents. I mean, like obviously every sport has them, but welcome, Natasha. I'm super, super excited to have you here.
Oh, I'm extremely excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, this is so awesome. Okay, so a little bit about Natasha. She's going to tell us her story, but like I said, she's a founder of a rehab clinic in Victoria called Symphony Rehab.
In
So
Nanaimo, quick correction.
in Nanaimo, sorry.
That's okay.
Nanaimo. It's even smaller.
It is. It's true.
So, but the lucky thing, yeah, so Nanaimo, BC. And she also, like I said, she's going to talk about she's a co-founder of an online service called Concussion Compass. So Natasha, give us your background and your story on how you got into, really specializing in concussion therapy.
Yeah, it's one of those things that literally I've always been fascinated by the brain, how it works, the interconnections, but I never really understood my own reason on why I was so passionate about this field, probably honestly until like this year, which is crazy. So I've been a physical therapist since 2011. And I was always interested in neurological rehab. So that was like spinal cord, Parkinson's, stroke. That's where I started. Because it was never the same thing. It was always different. It was always changing. Every person was very unique. One stroke was not the same as the other. And we actually lived in Vancouver at the time. And I worked at a private clinic in the hospital. And then we moved over to the island. And because my husband got transferred for work, and because I was the brain physio, someone referred me a concussion client. And I remember being like, a concussion is not a stroke. Like,
Oh,
I was a little bit like, okay, all right. I literally had to go like back in my brain to be like, okay, concussion, brain, what can I assess? Because we didn't learn about concussion in physio school. We had
back when you were in school?
Back when I was in school, we didn't learn. We literally got like a 1-hour lecture.
You're like the doctor. Here's a 1-hour nutrition.
Right?
On how to do about nutrition.
And in that 1-hour lecture, you didn't rehab concussions. Like it didn't happen. So this person was referred to me and I was just like, well, crap. So did an assessment. By the way, she's doing amazing now. But what that did is it opened a door to me. And I'm that therapist that if someone's coming to see me, I better damn well know what I'm doing. Because if I don't, I'm going to send them somewhere else. But there was nowhere else to send this woman. So I very quickly dove into I signed up for a course that weekend. I started reading research. I was like, I have to help her. And so I dove down this rabbit hole, and that in itself was like 6 years ago now. But it took me a long time to realize why the heck this area, because I'd done a lot of things, right? Like I'd worked with stroke, I'd worked with Parkinson's, and I really liked it. But the second I started diving down the concussion rabbit hole, I always call it, I just wanted to go deeper. Like I did not want to come out of that hole. Like I wanted to understand it more. And still to this day, I'm working on my fellowship in clinical neuroscience right now. So I can even have a greater understanding of all the interconnections of the brainstem and the cortex and all of it, and function and life and all this stuff. But where it came back to when I literally sat down one day and I was like, well, frick, that's like one of the big reasons is when I was 17, a very close family member experienced a significant concussion. So that was 21 years ago.
Right.
So 21 years ago, concussions absolutely weren't rehabbed, right? So this person looked fine. They sounded fine. They were given Tylenol and codeine and said, here you go, take this for your headaches. But when that person got home, they were not the same person at that time, right? They had short-term memory issues. They couldn't remember things from hour to hour. Their irritability and mood swings were huge. They would be in a conversation and then it's like they were gone, like just like zoned out. And then they'd snap back too. And so when these things started showing up as the family, we were like, what the heck? Like didn't understand. And I'm 17. So like you have an 18-year-old daughter. So we know what 17 and 18-year-old girls are like.
Yeah.
I didn't understand right? I was like, what the heck? And this led to some turmoil in my family. And it ended up being that I actually moved out of my home because of it. And
really? Was it a parent?
I don't even go into that part yet, but yeah. So it's like within family. So I actually moved out and obviously kept in touch with my parents. And I ended up moving back home like 6 months later, but it was just no one helped our family understand what the heck was happening. Like we didn't understand. The person who had the injury had no idea what the frig was happening. And it turned us upside down. And so luckily over time we started like via I moved to New Jersey and via MSN Messenger, we started reconnecting. Like this shows how old we are. No one uses MSN Messenger anymore.
Yeah, really.
Kids today won't even know what we're talking about.
I barely remember.
But then I moved to Vancouver, and that's where I experienced some significant trauma in my own life. And when I was that person, I went through this phase where I would call home every day because I needed support, right? Like my friends kind of I had like lost friendships, my identity with everything, like my life was turned upside down. And the only, like literally it was a 2 to 3 phone calls home a day to like keep me going. And the person on the other end of that phone call was the person who had the TBI. And they helped me get through one of the hardest periods of my life. And so when you
what happened to you? How did you?
So I have never shared this publicly, actually.
Oh, do you mind?
No. So I was, I was assaulted when I was in my early 20s. And so it just kind of turned my life upside down. So it was identity things, people who you thought supported you, you looked really strong, and you just kind of had to, like, you had to figure out what happened, like going through that grief process of what the heck happened, like this wasn't my fault, all these sorts of things were all those emotions that I was going through. And when you think of the concussion client and the PCS client, the people who have those persistent symptoms, their identity is turned upside down, like their support systems are rocked, they start to quite like, could things have been done differently? And so that realm of concussion is a realm I understand. I've never had a concussion.
Okay, I was just gonna say, but the whole feeling behind the whole
behind everything of people telling you, well, you look fine, like you look okay, and you're like, thanks. I'm not, like, so I get that, and so people always ask me, like, how can you relate to the concussion client so well when you've never had a concussion? And that's why, like, I can relate so strongly to the emotional piece that comes along with that, and your life being turned upside down for some people because of that. And so the person who literally helped me through that was this family member who'd had their own TBI. And so when it comes to like why I'm so passionate in this clinical piece, it's like the melding of all my worlds. It's the person who, I look at the family members who don't get the support, who still don't understand because it happens all the time. And there's no reason for that to be happening today at all. None. Then I look at the people who are struggling with concussion, who are still getting really shitty advice. Sorry, am I allowed to, sorry, I'm not allowed to swear. So people who are getting
certain words we don't use, but we can swear like that.
People who are getting like horrible advice, they're not being guided properly, and they're living with these symptoms, or told they just have to live with it when they don't have to. Then you get the fact that I completely understand like the emotional piece that comes along with that. And then you have my, like, I love understanding the inner workings of the brain. I love it. It fuels that curiosity in me and that educational piece in me. So literally working with my clients is like this collision of so many worlds and aspects of my life that I just pour that passion into my clients and education and awareness.
Wow. So like I mentioned, we were just chatting that my daughter, she's 18 now, but she had 2 concussions back to back. And I feel, and so one of them was she was playing flag football, and basically 2 girls like literally like ran into and peeled off each other. Like they like boom. And both of them like passed out on the ground, like literally for a couple of minutes. And for me, that was the one moment I wasn't watching. I turned my head. I thought you were gonna like turn around and like, whose kid's on the ground? I'm like, oh my God, I think it's mine. So that was the first one. And then the second one. And the funny thing is, Natasha, is that as a mom, and maybe all parents should listen to this. So as mom, you're like, no, like you're okay, you're going to be fine. And that was me. Like, I was like, maybe she's faking it. I'm going to be completely raw. This is what goes through these parents' heads. Maybe she's faking it. Maybe it's not real. She's just making it up. And that's what I was going, I'm like, you're going to be okay. She's like, yeah, but I got headaches. And I'm like, I'm just not feeling good. And I'm like, oh, come on, let's just go do something, you know? And, and, and I just think about that summer of her trying to navigate and me not being compassionate about it. And I feel like shit, actually, now that I really, really think about it, you know, and I was, and, you know, the need to maybe go, like, we did go get her checked, but and I find the thing is like, when you're dealing with something like that, it's like, what do you check? Like,
we
do
can
you
talk
go
about that,
for brain scans? Do you go for x-rays, like MRIs? Like, what is it? And how would you even be able to, yeah. Because it's like, okay, what else do you think we should do? Like, how do I solve this for you? How do I make you not feel like shit every day? And then, so there's that. And then she got like completely creamed on the ski hill. Have you ever seen two people fall? Well, and I was there that day. And then it was whiplash. Like, she didn't hit her head. I'm sure she hit her head on the way down, but then that was like the neck with the head. And from there, it was all downhill. Like, you know, she was a month out of school. And oh my gosh, like, what do you tell parents in that situation? Like, I want to cry, but what do you tell them?
So let's squash a couple myths real quick.
All right, let's do it.
So one, especially because I know a lot of your listeners are cyclists as well. So it does not matter if you're wearing a helmet, because a helmet does not stop you getting a concussion.
Exactly, yeah.
That piece. Number two, you don't need to lose consciousness to have a concussion at all. And it can be just from kind of that force and that whiplash. Concussion is an acceleration, deceleration injury, right? And it's the forces that are then transmitted to the brain that cause that shearing and this neurometabolic cascade that happens within the brain. There's all these physiological pieces that I just actually shared a graphic on my Instagram this last week, but you can't see them. And you can't see them on imaging either. So when you're questioning about, like, what do we do to get her checked? If they do it, if someone does a CT or they do an MRI or they do an X-ray, they're doing those things to make sure that there's no fractures or no more like pathological things. So no bleeds, no subdural hematoma, like none of that stuff, right? Because none of what actually happens within that brain shows up on standard imaging.
Right.
So a concussion causes a neurological disturbance in the firing of the neurons and all this metabolic stuff, but you can't see any of that.
Yeah.
And when you think back to when we were kids and people got concussions, right? It was like, shake it off and go back and, like, you know, go do your thing. Like, you're fine. Like, it's fine. It's nothing. And now we're in the midst of, like, one of my big things is increasing that awareness for parents, for people themselves, because my son races BMX. And the knowledge of concussion in that industry is not great.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's guys, right? It's like, you fall, you get up,
get on your bike.
finish it up.
The horror stories I've heard of, like, he got up, he threw up, he got up and rode the next moto. And I was like, what? Like,
you send them to see me over there.
So one of my big things is, like, we need to increase the awareness and the education. I mean, you look at the research and it's changing so rapidly. In 2012, we talked about, you know, having to rest for 3 weeks or several weeks is kind of where we need to do. And it's not detrimental. Now we're saying you rest for 48 hours and then you gradually start to increase activity. But here's the thing. So who did you get your daughter checked out by? When you say, like, we got her checked out, who did she see? I'm guessing a doctor. Oh no, just like profession.
Oh, I think it was a neurologist.
Okay. So most people get a concussion and they go see their GP, and then they might do a referral to a neurologist. If the GP is not comfortable with kind of concussion, then they'll refer to a neurologist, because that thought process is, it's my general practitioner and the neurologist understand the brain. So that must be the proper path, right?
Right.
Usually not. Only because, and every profession is different, but concussion is that functional disturbance within the brain. So you have to, what gets assessed is your person's function. So the people that ultimately, yes, you need to go to your, I say always go to your general practitioner, because it needs to be in your medical history and all that stuff.
Right.
And then if they are concerned about x-rays or images, then they are the ones that need to make that referral for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But then you want to connect with someone like a physical therapist. That's usually my go-to initially, who is trained and knowledgeable in concussion. The PT profession is huge.
Yeah.
And there's some of us that have chosen to niche down, like myself.
Mm-hmm.
But what the profession does is when you go for an assessment, it's so much more than asking questions. I work with some youth hockey players, and I remember I had this one kid who we were rehabbing him from his concussion, and he had just went for a regular like doctor's appointments, and his symptoms had disappeared. His symptoms had been gone for about a week. And so he went to his doc, and his doc, the assessment from his doc was just asking questions. And when he said he was symptom free, the doc was like, okay, cleared to play. Luckily, his dad listened to me.
Oh God.
Because my response was, no, like, I'm not clearing you to play. And the kid couldn't understand. And so what's important to know too is just because your symptoms go away, particularly in that acute, does not mean your brain has recovered. And with this kid, what I could do is, because I'd assessed him previously, I had objective outcome measures that I could show him. Look at your sway pattern in your balance. Look at how slow your reaction time still is. Look at the stuff like you're not ready to go back, especially on the ice. So when someone comes in to get an assessment, and when we're trying to figure out, are they like, what do we need to work on? What do we need to rehab? We're looking at a global assessment. We're looking at vision. We're looking at vestibular. We're looking at the neck. We're looking at their autonomic nervous system. We're looking at the ability to push themselves in exercise. We're looking at symptoms. We literally do a global systems assessment to see what is working well, what's not working well. And then in the acute stage, we guide them in this graded exposure to environments and to activity again. So in your daughter's case, we talked about she struggles with headaches, right? Yeah. Headaches can come from like 5 different places. So just throwing medication at a headache, or just saying, okay, I'm going to go for massage. What if that's not the reason the headache is happening? Then she's always going to have headaches because you don't know the root cause of why the heck it's happening. So that's why connecting with someone who really understands that those elements and how they kind of interact together are the people that need to be helping you kind of move through a concussion and rehab through a concussion.
Yeah, because she's it just pains me to see her, like a vegetable in bed complaining about a migraine. And and she says she's pinpointed certain things that offset it, like she's got some allergies to like pollen. Right now it's not the best time, right? And so that sets off the eyes and the nose, and then and she's like, the light, and like just doing too much at one time. And here's me, the parent, maybe if you slowly ease yourself into, I know, I'm just like, I can't handle, and I want to be sympathetic.
As a family member, it's hard because
how long do you be sympathetic where like this person's just starting to turn inside out and not be active anymore, and just sitting there, and all I think about is becoming unhealthy, and that's another like
layer,
something else to throw on the fire when you're not healthy and you're not feeling good inside. And I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? And that's what was running through my head, Natasha. Like,
it's tough.
How do you counsel parents?
It's that
you have an extra section for that.
We actually did a call, and in Concussion Compass, I'm one day, I'm like, I literally just need to build something that's like for the family. Like, here you go. Because in Concussion Compass, we did a call where we said to every single one of our members, we have 500 members in our program. Wow. And we said to everyone at the time, we're like, here's the link, invite anybody in your social circle, family that you want to join us, so we can educate them for you and they can ask us questions, because it's easier to hear it from me than it is to hear it from your daughter, right? It's always easier to hear it from that other person. And so it's this piece of understanding that it's hard, but we also say it's that the communication is key. So overstimulation for someone with a concussion, especially in your daughter's stage, like she's in the PCS realm, right? Which is different than acute. Like, so they're different entities. So she's in that PCS, that persistent concussion syndrome realm of things. And overstimulation, when you get to that point, it's like you get symptom flaring across the board of what you're dealing with. But then if you continuously push into that overstimulation realm, you can crash and burn for days on end and feel like terrible. So for the person with the concussion, it is truly a balancing act. And we teach this in the program. It's called, we just talk about planning and pacing, where you can plan and pace and your day might be full of things. Someone with a concussion can do what we call like one red light activity a day, which means they can go to this grocery store and then the rest of the day it's like yoga, meditation, like a slight walk, like, and restorative things. So it really is this fine act, but it's that piece of every person's different. No two concussions are the same. And as a parent or as a family member or a partner or a spouse, is that conversation, understanding, like, ideally, like, they're trying. Now, if all they're doing is laying in bed all day, every day, then we have to have a discussion. But if you can see them like trying to communicate with you and trying to do these things, or they do one thing and then it looks like they're just laying around the rest of the day, like, it's because that one thing used the energy reserves they have, and they're trying to restore that so they can do one thing or two smaller things the next day. And it really is a balancing act. And so what we talk about with like, I'll counsel, I'm not a counselor, but I'll bring like family members and people into the clinic, and we'll do like a joint session together. And what I'll say is communication's key. So if you have something coming up as a family that you really want this person to be, like your daughter to be a part of, it's saying to her, it's, I don't know, it's my birthday and I would really like to do something together. Like, can we, I don't know, something you love the most, can we cycle? We're not going to cycle, but can we go do something together? Or can we like go out for dinner or something like that? It's her job to then say, I want to be a part of this day for you. I can't do the whole thing. Or like, instead of going out to dinner, could we do takeout and have like a picnic in the backyard? Or it's finding that compromise, and both people have to be willing to do that. But it is tough, especially if you're someone who is go, 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 which I suspect you are. It's really hard for you to then step back and be like, she's doing the best she can. And she's in active therapy. And so, she's doing rehab exercises at home as well, right? But PCS can take months or years to resolve.
Yeah, like it was 2 years ago. And that's the thing, like, when I was talking to her, because I don't get to see her a lot. So, because she's with her dad full time, and many times she's had to cancel the weekends at my place because, she's got too much schooling. And I know that she has to take more time for school. Like, there's other things. She has a learning disability. So it takes her longer to learn things. She's got different methods to help her with that. So that's awesome. And also she is visually impaired.
Okay.
So you have all this going on, right? And it's all brain related. And I'm like, okay, I get it. You got lots of homework. But I have put it out there. I said, maybe we can get together once a week to go biking or do something, or, I'll come and I'll see you, go for a walk or whatever. So that's kind of me getting to see her more, because I don't get a lot of communication, and I feel bad because, like I she's going on to all these appointments. I'm not sure what they're for. I don't know what the end result has been. So I don't know what's going on really. So, I'm trying to do the best, and she's 18, like she's so young. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
she's got her whole life ahead of her.
Active. Yeah. But
she
I'm
can
glad
get better.
to hear that.
Like, know that She can get better.
I know she can get better.
Know that.
I know, but like, it's me. It's like, I know you can get better. Like, you let's
just
start
gotta let her go
that.
at her process and her.
I know. But to calm down. Yeah. All right, you gotta go faster. No, I'm just kidding. But I get it, and sometimes I'm just like, yeah, I'm like, well, can't you just, or what if, or, you know. Like,
well,
no.
and one of the things too, like we kind of talked about this, like, so we don't know, and there's so much research every day coming out, but we don't know why people develop PCS. We don't, right? So, yeah. I mean, so we're not terrifying people on your podcast. 70% of people recover just fine.
Yeah.
Right? And 70% of adults will recover within that 1 month period. That's the normal trajectory for concussion. 30% will go on to develop these persistent symptoms, but we don't know why. We have no idea. It doesn't relate to the severity of the concussion. It doesn't, there's no like tick, tick, tick. What we can say, and what we do kind of theorize about more is poor acute management. So if you do a really terrible job managing your acute concussion, you are more likely to develop persistent symptoms.
Right.
Learning disabilities, it just don't necessarily guarantee PCS, but it's slower. So people with learning disabilities, migraine histories, ADHD, those sorts of things already have a longer recovery period than normal, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to develop PCS. We really don't know. But the one thing for sure that we can tend to say is if you don't do a good job in the beginning stages,
right,
you're likely to continue and it's going to take longer. But yeah, 70% of people, so we don't scare everyone, 70% of people recover just fine. For an adult, you'll usually be symptom-free in about 10 to 14 days. But then remember I talked about that metabolic process, like that healing of your brain, even though you're symptom-free, that metabolic process that's happening in your brain that you can't see, that takes about a month to actually like go through and recover and go through that. Kids take longer. Kids normal are about a month for symptoms, and then they take a little bit longer after that. So
now, can I have a question? Because I have a number of friends who like literally has taken them years, like still. And it, I don't know, some of them is like the place that they were hit, like where they, like on the head. So I'm trying to think of my girlfriend. She stood up and hit her head on the corner of a cabinet. And that was it. So that could have been like the front lobe, like whether it's the right or left side. Like say it was probably like this side. I'm visioning. It's in a dental office, so it's probably like, anyway, they could have been either side. It could have been the front. Yeah. But yeah, and she's taken a long time to get over. Like she had to stop everything. And I can think of another friend who I visited a couple of times, and she fell at work. So it was the back
of her head.
And she literally like went back to like talking and so and you just see all this head trauma that I don't even know if it's classified as concussion at that point.
It still is. Yeah. I mean, unless they had, so concussion falls into this like mild traumatic brain injury. So we have traumatic brain injury and then we have MTBI. So like mild, moderate, or severe, right? So concussion falls into that mild traumatic brain injury window because there's no like on imaging, like there's no bleeds, there's no fractures, like there's nothing like that happening. But we used to grade concussions. We really don't anymore, but it still falls into that MTBI, mild traumatic brain injury window. In terms of that severity piece, obviously we tend to think if you've actually lost consciousness, it's more severe than if you haven't, right? So there's studies now that are looking at if you had repetitive trauma or like multiple subconcussive blows versus if you lost consciousness, what does that mean for you later in life with things like dementia and neurodegenerative diseases? Like there's lots of research going on about that stuff. But there's also stuff looking at, do things change if you have a linear injury? So kind of that versus if there's a rotational element to your concussion. Do things change if it's, where is the site of injury? So the back of your head is where like that's vision, right? Like that's your occipital lobe, but you're going to get a coup contra coup usually. So you're going to get, because concussion is acceleration, deceleration, right? So you hit your head, the back of your head, you're going to get the front of your head, and then as well. So you're going to get stuff within the brain. And so the frontal cortex up here is where all our executive function happens, right? Like that's where our dorsal lateral, that's where inhibition happens. That's where thought is. That's where all that stuff, whereas back here is our occipital lobe. So that's where we process vision, but our brain is not segmented as, like, everything connects with everything. So things go from the frontal lobe to the occipital lobe, like your eye movements all come out of your frontal lobe, right? Like all this stuff. So depending on, as someone who's taking a history, yeah, I want to know where the main kind of site of injury was. But again, I'm looking at the bigger picture because it's never just one thing. There's always you always have to look at the interplay between the different parts of the brain as well.
Now, do you, like, in your checklist, like you said, I know you said you don't have like a check. Do you look at lifestyle with regards to recovery speed, like being active, eating properly? Those are the two that I think of, like, what's this person coming from it, or,
So we look at where, who's the person beforehand, because those habits they had beforehand puts them in, everyone starts in a different place, right? So if you led a really healthy life beforehand, you were active, you ate well, you're going to have less inflammation already in your body. You're going to be stronger. You're going to have these things, which we suspect would probably help facilitate healing. No guarantees, but would help facilitate healing. Or at least it means the injury is possibly not as severe as if you were someone who was extremely unhealthy. Lifestyle habits heavily come into play in recovery, especially if you're pushing into that persistent realm. So in Concussion Compass, our whole framework talks about, it's kind of this 4-pronged thing. Lifestyle is one of those prongs. So we talk about lifestyle, we talk about rehabilitation, we talk about mindset and community. It's like those are our 4 pillars that we educate, teach, and work you through in our program, because they are huge factors, particularly when you're getting to that PCS realm, but also in that acute stage too.
Right. Yeah, because I would think, like, because I know, like, health plays a big role for healing on all aspects, like whether you break a bone or to recovering from a surgery, something like that. But so I'm just wondering if making a lifestyle change could facilitate the increase. I know it's not guaranteed because everything's different, but you would think
it does.
That going from fast food to healthy food would probably help.
You can take out the probably.
Yeah. Would help.
Would help.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So
yeah, you can take out the probably 100%.
Yeah. So then I'm like, my daughter, are you eating well?
Your poor daughter's you're gonna get off this call and your poor daughter's gonna be like,
oh my God, my poor daughter. Like, you can only pry so much before they turn and walk away, right? It's like, I'm not talking to you anymore, and I get it. Like, I have my mom here. It's like, don't ask anymore. But so let's talk about your businesses. So Natasha, you said, so you're the founder of Symphony Rehab. So that's obviously where you do all your rehabilitation.
Actual treatment. Yeah.
So chat about that. But then you've made mention, and everybody has probably picked up on it, the Concussion Compass and how that was born. I guess. Birthed out of your born from through your rehab, and like, how did you put that together? So talk about that.
So Symphony Rehab is we call it a hybrid clinic. So it's a brick and mortar clinic that we also do virtual services as well. But we're multidisciplinary. So it's physical therapy, it's clinical counseling, it's occupational therapy, it's speech, and it's breath control therapy. Just like the brain can't be siloed into very specific things, you can't look at a person as a diagnosis. You need to look at them as a holistic entity. And so every person has different things and needs they need. And I wanted to build a team that could meet the needs of the person themselves. So that's a big piece behind that. We do, obviously I focus my clinic, like my clinical practice is specifically concussion. Right. But within the clinic itself, we do concussion, neurological, orthopedic, pelvic health. We do a whole bunch as a clinic as a whole, but me specifically, I only do concussion. So I'm a bit unique as a physical therapist in that I have my PT training, but I also have functional neurology training, and I've done additional training in, like, I've gone to neurooptometry conferences because I want to understand how these other professions work so I can refer out if I need to, but also so that I can make sure I'm doing a kick-ass job for my clients. So I work in a lot of an intensive model, which means I'll have clients that come work with me over the course of a week, and we'll do like 3 hours of therapy a day. So we do a high intense dosage. And then after that week, they go home with a home program and then a follow-up kind of plan. So I have people that travel from all over, right now, Canada, to come get treatment, but all the people that travel from the US or the province or elsewhere in the country to come work with me for that week to help them make that next step forward in their recovery.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I do. The clinic is itself, though, if you're a local person, obviously we'll do your more traditional weekly or bi whatever it is treatment. So that's the clinic. So Symphony, I created Symphony in 2015. At the beginning, I just drove to people's houses because I was new in town.
That's how usually the business starts.
Just me.
You're like, I can't drive anymore. I need a location.
I was like, I'm done. So then I opened the clinic and we started doing telehealth in 2017. So it's been great. Like, it's I've won Entrepreneur of the Year for Canada for Symphony.
Oh, wow.
I've been like top 20 under 40 business and community achievement awards.
I forgot to add all that stuff in.
Yeah, I'm just going to rave about it now. I've been told I don't brag enough, so I'm going to do it right now.
Yeah, brag.
And then this last year actually was really great because I won the Excellence in Leadership for Physical Therapy for my province. So,
wow.
And it's because
you guys gotta go see her.
It's because of these. I don't think in the squares of a box. I'm always thinking, like, how can I give more value? How can I see something like this doesn't make sense? I can't accept this as a norm. Like, how can I change and add and get at that information? That's where, like, I started doing telehealth before the world started doing telehealth, right? It's,
oh gosh,
how
good for
can
you.
I,
Good
right?
on
Like,
ya.
I can start doing these things and see these pieces, and I'm also that practitioner that doesn't just look at it as, here's a concussion, here's your vestibular exercises. It literally is, here's your vestib, but what's going on at home? What's your habit like? What's your sleep like? What's your nutrition like? Because we have to look at the whole thing, or I'm doing a disservice, in my opinion. So
I completely agree with you.
So that's the clinic. But what happened was I kept seeing people. I was very rarely the first person people saw. So what would happen is they'd be seeing other practitioners, and they just wouldn't be getting better. So then they'd end up in my clinic, or they would have seen a general practitioner and they'd kept going to their GP forever, and they'd go see a neurologist, and they were told, like, this is as good as it's going to get. This is your new normal, which is,
I hate that.
Terrible and wrong.
I hate that. I'm like, no, that's not my new normal.
And so they'd end up in my clinic and they'd be in tears because life was falling apart at home. Family members didn't understand. They didn't know what to do, but they knew this wasn't who they were supposed to be. Like, they knew there was no way this, and they ended up in tears in my clinic. And so I kept seeing this over and over and over again. And for me, it was like, I love working one-on-one with my clients, but a lot of the things that I was finding that I was educating and teaching and leading them through didn't need to be us sitting in a treatment room having a conversation. So I knew there was a way I could help. And I'm like, if I'm seeing this as much in my clinic, then I can't imagine the number of people around the world who feel this way.
Right.
And so for me, it was just like, I need to do something. I need to find a way to educate people, support people, and help them through this recovery. And then it just so happened that my business partner is Molly Parker, and she's also a physical therapist. And she's on her own post-concussion journey now and has been for years. And we connected via Instagram. And we kind of just started building this relationship, and we realized that we actually think of the whole rehab process very similarly. And we started sharing like what we wanted to do, and we realized we wanted to build the same thing. And we were like, well, we could do it separately, or we could come together, which just gives people this unique view of a clinician who has dedicated their lives to it, who had a family member that's gone through it. So I get that element too. And then you have another physical therapist who's living it and lived it. So you get this perspective that doesn't exist anywhere else. Because you get this melding of our thought processes and our ideas and the experience versus the clinical experience, and how we can have these conversations together for our members and our community to help guide them forward in the next thing. So that's how Compass was birthed.
Two women.
There we go. We legit want to change the game and the way concussion is being approached and rehabbed, because it's just, the medical system as a whole is not doing a great job, and we want to make it better.
Yeah. Is she in Nanaimo with you, or is she somewhere else?
She's American. Yeah. So so cross-border partnership, which really
is even better.
What's that?
It's even better.
Yeah. So she's been up here with me for a bit. So she came to visit, but she goes home very shortly. So yeah, she lives in Spokane, but she's looking at moving to San Diego, actually. So yeah, no, we are not local. We're not in the same city most of the time.
He's just like, we have to stay on the same time zone.
Oh God.
If anything.
You know what? I didn't even think of that. That would be, yeah.
Oh, imagine. No. You can't go to the East Coast. I forbid.
Time zone changes. Oh God. I've gotten much better at them, but because we have members all over the world, actually. And when we first started, it's like the little things, right? So when we first started, we would send out these reminder emails of like, okay, your call's at 11 a.m. Pacific time on Monday. And I'd get members being like, they'd screw up the time zone change. So literally now in every email, it's like, and here's your time zone converter. Like if you need to figure it out. So it's like right there. It's like these little like nuanced details that are just,
I know. That's why I add mine and theirs.
Yeah.
Because like when I get them, I'm just like, and I'm like, okay, is that 2 hours or 3 hours, or is it central
time's the one that always messes me up.
Yeah.
I think central's 2 hours, but it's the one that always messes me up.
And then I've had some in the UK or like over there. I'm just like, okay,
yeah.
That's why I have one on my phone as well. Like, okay, what time do I have to get up? No, to talk to somebody. Yeah. So, all right, awesome. Now let's talk about Concussion Compass and the services. Yeah. And I know that you were telling me that you launched something just recently. I'd love you to share that, because this is something that, like you were mentioning, no matter where you are, you can join. And I know that with her on her Facebook page, so all these links are going to be in the description for the podcast. So you can join. I believe that it's free on your Facebook page, right? Or is it a membership?
So Compass is a membership.
Okay. Yeah. So but you can get it. It's on Facebook. So Concussion Compass, you go there, you join, you pay a membership.
Yeah.
And then you get all the juicy information. I imagine that whether you're have suffered a concussion, or you're a family member, or someone close to somebody's, is the perfect place for them, right?
Yeah. So there's two different ways.
All right. So tell us all about it.
So Compass is an online membership program. And we have two elements to it. So we have a foundations element, and foundations is kind of our pre-recorded mini suite of courses. So this is where we're going to walk you through back step a little bit, 4 pillars of concussion. So we work you through lifestyle, mindset, community, and rehabilitation, because you are a whole being. And sometimes part of the issue is you've been looked at as these individual pieces before, and no one's helped you piece everything together. So that's kind of the magic between everything that we do. In foundations, it's this mini suite of courses. So we walk you through how do you assess, like looking at how do you assess your sleep and how do you make changes in your sleep? Look at nutrition, look at aerobic exercise. How do you start exercising again after a concussion? Because it's not the same as you would have trained for cycling beforehand. It's very different. right? So we look at these foundational pieces and then we take you into our rehab element. So there's self-assessments to help us understand, like we talked about earlier, the root cause of why you're getting headaches. What is the root cause of your dizziness? And then we have rehab at home strategies within there that you can do, but we'll also, once you get to determine what that root cause is, if we can help connect you with someone, we will do that as well. So there's this mini suite of courses, and then it's chock-a-block full of resources. So some of like the consensus statements and things you can bring your doctor if you need to have to help facilitate conversations, if you're looking for referrals, our favorite tips, podcasts, websites, apps, all that stuff. We have a bunch of, we call doctor locators to help kind of bring everything into one place to help you search. So that's our foundation section. And then our mentorship section is our live portion. So we do 4 live calls a month. So the first one is a mentorship call with Molly and I together, where we'll teach on a topic, and then we have Q&A. The second Monday of the month is an office hour. So basically you show up, ask your questions, we answer them. Third call of the month is a guest expert. So we welcome experts in the concussion world who are amazing at what they do to come speak and educate. And these are people that you would wait months and months to get in to see or pay hundreds of dollars for, and they come and do this for us. So they share their knowledge, and then we open the floor that you can ask them questions directly. And then, so we either do concussion experts or really like just thought leaders in the world. So like Anthony Trucks came and talked to us about identity, and it was amazing, right? Like there's some really cool things that happen. And then our fourth call,
so huge.
Yeah, we do a fourth call, and we have an ambassador team. And so our ambassador team leads these calls. So it's just a chance for the community to come together without Molly and I present, just to share and learn together and really kind of bond and have this amazing thing. So those are like, that's our live portion. And then Molly, we have an accompanying like private community in our Facebook group as well that is just Compass members. And Molly and I show up live in that community every week as well to answer questions. So you get a lot of guidance from people who can truly support you and help push you in the right direction. You don't have to wait forever to ask a question and have that piece. So that whole program is for people living with persistent symptoms specifically. If you're a family member who wants to understand more about what's happening and how to support them in planning and pacing and like what's actually happening in their brain and this piece of things, then we let you have the foundation section. So you don't get the live piece. It's a piece of what people with PCS share with is they're so tired of having to explain everything over and over and over again, right? They're tired of having to like try to explain what they're dealing with or what's happening. And so the nice thing in that community is they don't have to. They don't. We get it. We all get it. We've heard it all, right? So that is very like, that is for people with PCS only, but family members, absolutely, foundation section. And they still have the ability to ask questions on the videos that we'll answer if they have further questions. So that piece, foundations, is open to family members. So the easiest way is to actually follow me on Instagram. Which you have the link for. So it's at Natasha.
Yeah, I've got everything.
Yeah. So on my Instagram, if we're having a free opt-in, which we're going to be relaunching again soon, like our last freebie was how to calm your concussion symptoms immediately in 3 days, or not in 3 days.
Say that again, Natasha. That was really fast.
I don't remember what I just said. So we have an opt-in that's how to calm your 3 ways to immediately calm your concussion symptoms. Okay. I said it wrong. That's why I said it so fast.
Everybody should go for that one.
But we're going to be relaunching that. So we took it down for a bit. We're going to be relaunching that. So anytime we have webinars coming up, because we do free webinars throughout the year as well. So anytime we have webinars or free tools or anything like that, it'll always be on my Instagram. And then you can always have the ability to join Compass from my Instagram as well. So that's the best way.
That's just Natasha Wilch, right?
At natasha.wilch.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Because the Facebook one is natasha.wilch.concussioncoach.
Yeah. I should probably update that Facebook. All the content goes there, but I don't actually know if the link is right. Go to Instagram.
I'll check them.
Okay. Let me know.
Because I got the facebook.com concussion compass. That's the one I pulled.
Yeah, that's Compass's Facebook page for sure, which obviously that'll take to our website, and then you could join from there as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay. Just a second. I'm sure I have a question here. can you just give us some tips? Like, it's funny. I can think of so many times I've fallen on my head.
Yeah.
Like from the time I was a kid, like falling in the barn. I do remember one big one, like I fell like flat on the cement floor, and I'll never forget it. I was like, I'm like,
Yeah.
when I think, I'm like, I think it was from that time, like long time ago. But like snowboarding before we had helmets.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Mountain biking, endos. Like I've had a couple of those, and I can't say that I've never, but I don't think I've ever had, crashes on my bike, ever had like serious symptoms. Now,
So
is there a reason for that? Or am I just extraordinarily
just extraordinary
superhuman?
You're just a superhuman lady. We don't know why. There's some instances where I will see some serious crashes and I'll be like, oh frig, and they are fine.
Yeah.
And then some instances and they are not fine. And I'm just like, we don't know. The thing, anytime, if you are in a place or a scenario or something happens where you suspect a concussion might have happened, it makes so much more sense just to step away and sit out for 24 hours and make sure you're good. So right. So they might not even start to show up for like 6 hours after, but they can be delayed beyond that. So what I would say is familiarizing, if you have a kid that plays in a sport, particularly that has a higher risk for concussion, if you engage in recreational activity, be familiar with the signs and symptoms of concussion. Be familiar.
Oh, maybe you should talk about that.
Look at so your signs and symptoms can be. So you have. I'm about to do an Instagram post on this today, to be honest.
Awesome.
So there's physical. So that's things like your dizziness, your headaches, your light sensitivity, your sound sensitivity, your balance is off. There's cognitive. So you feel like you're in a fog. You just don't feel right. You feel slow. You are having issues forming words or the wrong words coming out or processing like speech. You're just like, not like having issues there. Sleep is a big one. 30 to 70% of people have sleep trouble after concussion. That's huge. Emotional. So irritability, crying for no reason, mood swings, all those pieces. And then we call this like there's vestibular ocular.
That has nothing to do with hormones.
Not if you just have an incident where you smoke your head or think you may have smoked your head. And then there's things like blurred vision, double vision. If you lose consciousness, if you have really bad neck pain or anything, you need to go to the hospital. If you like vomiting, nausea, dizziness, all that stuff. So like those are some of the major ones, but there's a slew. But again, knowing that it doesn't necessarily have to show up right away.
Yeah, that's what I've heard, like to watch at least up to 3 days.
Yep, pretty much. That's kind of my thing too. Yeah. So there's a lot of really great resources out there, but it's like if you suspect you've had a concussion, stop, like pull away from the activity, give yourself like 24 hours. Are you still feeling good? Okay, try to engage in some things. You're still good, then you're probably all right. But they can definitely show up down the road, which is the piece there. So, and this would be one of those things too, where if you are, and I'll like add this like for you too. So if you are part of a community that you think there'd be enough interest for someone to come actually speak to that community to give an educate. So I do this all the time. So like I will go speak to rugby teams or I'll go speak to hockey teams to give the education of, okay, in a more structured format than we've done on our podcast, obviously, of like, here's what a concussion is. Here are the signs and symptoms of concussion. Here's what you do. Here's when you go for help, like all these things, and get someone to come in and talk to your group or talk to your club or talk to your team or organization.
Yeah, for you to come and talk to my club.
And like, I would happily volunteer to do that for you.
Yeah, just do a little like, you could do a Zoom or maybe a live right on right in the page.
Yeah, I would be happy to.
That'd be cool. So Natasha, what about pupils? Is that a huge indicator?
Your eyes are literally the window into, it's 8:06, just so you know. Your eyes are literally the windows into your brain. And so it is one way that I will assess your autonomic nervous system.
Okay. Well, I was wondering if that would be like the first thing. Okay, just look at me. Eyes over there.
So tracking and saccades and convergence absolutely is one thing we'll look at for sure. That can be impaired with concussion. And then the other thing would be your actual ability to respond to light. Because we have normative data on kind of what people with concussions will normally come back as versus not. So it's one of those tools that we use to help understand how your autonomic nervous system is doing. We know after a concussion that you're in more sympathetic drive than parasympathetic drive as well. And so it is absolutely one of the pieces. But if you're like a safety person or you're a sideline person, some of the things you probably want to be familiarized with are, so you could look at the VOMS, which is a vestibular ocular motor screen. So it pulls in a little bit of that eye stuff you were just talking about, vestibular piece. And then the other thing that is well kind of used in the first 3 days after concussion is your SCAT. So your SCAT.
So what was the first one again?
So it's called VOMS, VOMS.
VOMS. Okay.
Yeah. And that's a vestibular movement ocular motor screen. And so you're looking at how well the person does the task, but also does it bring on any symptoms?
Okay.
And then the other one is your SCAT5. I think SCAT5 is the next one. So it pulls in a little bit of the cognition and the memory and balance and piece of that as well. So if you are someone that's working with a team where you're on the sidelines and you are not familiar with those two, that would be something I would familiarize yourself with.
Okay. We'll have to write that down because my 9-year-old son starts football.
Oh, there we go. It's not tackle at that age, is it?
I'm not sure.
Oh,
I heard it was.
Okay.
So I'm like, it's a good thing he can run fast. But the thing is that,
I love it.
but both my husband and I are like, oh, we're so excited that he's excited about it. But we're also like, yeah, we, understand.
I'm of the mentality, so except my son BMX races, which when they crash hard. And my son's turning 7. So, because I get asked all the time, like, doing what you do, how do you not bubble wrap your kid?
Like, why would I?
And it's that they need to live their life, right? Like BMX, now there are certain sports that I probably wouldn't put my son in. But BMX brings him so much joy. Like he smiles. You can get a concussion when you fall off the jungle gym at school, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to let him live his life. I'm aware of the risks. And if an incident should happen, we will cross that bridge when it comes to it. But you can't live your life in fear. And I can't make my son live his life in fear because of what my concerns
completely
are.
Agree. So. Like, I just watched the boys on the trampoline, and that's enough.
Oh, God.
Let's not talk about trampoline.
I've heard some.
So I'm like, well, I suppose maybe I can handle it, and I'm of the same, we'll just cross that bridge. But the thing is that I think it's important as a parent to kind of know, like just do the checklist. If something were to happen, like straight away.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep. I think it's be aware, make sure that you're educated because you can't always guarantee that the coaches and the league will be. And know, at least you don't necessarily know exactly what you have to do, but know who you can reach out to at a minimum.
Well, I know you, so I'm okay.
You're good.
And everybody knows you now. So Natasha in Nanaimo and Concussion Compass. So that's all you guys need to know. You get into her community. So is there anything else that you can tell us? I mean, this has been really good information. I'm just trying to think of any other questions, but can you he just said, well, I know. So I'm a cyclist. I don't know if you want to talk cycling specific because I was funny. I just did something on helmets. And you're like, helmets. I'm like, helmets save lives, but
they do. I mean, they help skull fractures. Lives. They absolutely save lives. They don't decrease your chance of concussion, but they save your life.
Well, I know if you're going to hit hard and something's going to happen, the thing is that you're saving yourself is from a direct hit, which could make it 100 times worse.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was just doing a little thing on like helmets and what to look for and how to put them on properly
Oh, I love it.
and things like that. So I just did a little pot.
I would say I literally
What?
tried on a bunch of helmets for myself for BMX last year, and it was a journey and a half trying to find one I liked.
Yeah, like or just fit well.
Yeah.
Does it fit? Look hot on me? Okay.
Yeah, there we go. We're good. And I actually think I probably bought one that's too small for my head. So I was like, oh, great.
Oh, no. Like, why do I have a headache every time I have
why can I barely put this on?
Yeah, that's right. Squealing. But yeah, so that was my Friday's episode actually.
Oh, I love
on
it.
Helmets.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of cycling, it's just, I mean, the fact that, again, we talked about just taking care of awesome health and to optimize your brain and your health now, like before you even get a concussion, right? So,
Right.
I mean, we don't know, we don't have like insane predictors that we can do, but taking care of your body and your health and your brain, eating well, getting proper sleep, staying hydrated, so cycling, cross training, right? So, in terms of cycling and like I don't cycle, but like whatever you do, cycling on the bike, but right, it's a very linear sport, right? Like you're in your position, you're either over or whatever it is. So in your routines of your strength training and everything that you do, cross train, and I know you do resistance training. But by that I also mean look at things that challenge your coordination, challenge cross body movement, challenge balance, challenge rhythm and timing, because all of that piece is just going to strengthen your brain if you were to ever have a concussion. But then in terms of, if you experience something, again, it's just, and I'd be happy to chat to your club, but being familiar, know that you're going to get better. Know that you can improve. My son's going to school. I'm going to give him a hug.
Aww. Oh, look at you.
Have a great day, bud. I love you. Know that you can improve. Know that you will improve. Know who to connect to, but 24 to 48 hours rest.
Yeah.
Cognitive and physical rest. And then after that 48 hours, it is a gradual reintroduction of activity. And that's where connecting with a PT who is really knowledgeable in this field can help guide you in what that gradual recovery looks like. Because, and the key in that acute windows of like that is trying to stay below exacerbation of your symptoms. Mm-hmm. So as we gradually increase stuff, we gradually increase your tolerance, staying below symptom flare. Right. So for high achieving athletes and individuals with type A personalities, that can be challenging when you're used to go, 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 go.
Right.
But just, I want to stress the importance of that gradual piece, because that's what's going to actually help you recover faster. And the fun thing is that there's actually research now that shows us that we can begin that gradual we call it sub-threshold aerobic exercise 2 to 4 days after a concussion. And we know that if we do that properly, it's going to improve our rate of recovery.
Right. Oh, that's good to hear. Because I just want to think that was awesome. A recap. Now, strength training, just a quick, I always find that strength training, your muscles, like super important, even like I wouldn't say like a strength training your neck muscles, but you definitely work your neck muscles in a lot of the exercises you do. Mm-hmm. That can be, I don't know, like
so there's
an added bonus.
Studies that have been done. So women are usually at higher risk of concussion, particularly, and one of the thought processes is because women usually have a longer neck.
Really?
That's one of the theories. So
we have a longer neck?
Apparently. On an average, apparently women have longer necks.
Okay, every woman listen to this. If you have a partner who's a guy, go check it.
Go see who has the longer neck. So there's a theory behind like, and there's been studies that like if we strength train our neck, because the whole thought is if we have a stronger neck, will it absorb that force so we have less of an acceleration deceleration injury? Let's just say that we can't say for sure that's the case. Right. It's one of those factors that if you're strengthening the rest of your body, making sure that your deep neck flexors and neck extensors are strong is just going to serve you better. Some studies have found it's been helpful. Some studies have found it's not. So there is no definitive, yes, this will prevent a concussion. But I'm of the mindset that whatever you can do to optimize your health as a whole anyways,
right,
is going to serve you better. So it's like, that's where like I'll have some of my athletes that come work with me before they have a concussion. We'll do a super in-depth like preseason like baseline. We'll find where their weaknesses are and we'll strengthen them.
right. Oh, that makes sense.
Right. So it's like, okay, here's the preseason, here's what you can work into your own program, or like, here's where you actually need me versus here's where you can go work with your strength and conditioning coach. But we do this full system screen. So it's not just strength and balance. It's what's your vestibular system doing? What's your visual system doing? Let's strengthen all those components. Let's challenge you there. So you're optimized as best as you possibly can going into the season.
I love it. I love it. I love all of it. So I think that we'll just end it here. Like, I know we could talk about this at length because I'm just thinking of other things I can ask, but I'm, like, and I can continue asking questions, but I know we both have stuff to do and people are probably like, okay. So I want to thank everyone for listening. I want to thank especially you, Natasha. Now that you guys, have an amazing resource, I'd love to know what your biggest takeaway was about this particular episode. Please put it in the comments, and don't forget to put on notifications so you don't miss other amazing episodes. And Natasha and I would love it that you give us like I said, a review with your biggest takeaway, and also 5 stars, because you don't get information like this on other podcasts, because it's going to help. And also take a look at her Concussion Compass Facebook pages. Like I said, all the information will be in the notes. Share it with somebody that could benefit. And also get on, where can they just follow you? Is it Instagram or Facebook? Instagram. Okay, go follow her on Instagram, and that's where you're going to get all her weekly videos and information. So with that, thank you everyone. Have an amazing day. Be safe. Don't be a crazy parent like me. No, I'm not a crazy parent, but I internally think a lot crazy stuff. And like, especially when you're looking at your kids, right? You're like, I just want you to be the best kids ever, not ever get hurt. But yeah. So you can follow me on my Instagram and my Facebook, and you can follow what happens at football.
There we go.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Natasha, and have yourself an amazing day.